Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny. I'm a life coach, and today we're talking about quitting, throwing in the towel, giving up, releasing yourself. Um, you might remember my friend Katrina, who is with me. She was in one of my older videos, and she is a career break coach, and she just published a book about career breaks with the For Dummies brand, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just going to talk to Katrina a little bit about this book and career breaks and anything else that comes up.
Yeah.
So, um, I guess I don't know where to start. I can come up with something, but I'm giving you a chance to decide.
I love that. No, I mean, I think it's interesting because you actually are a published author. You self-published a book, right?
I did. I kind of forget that I did that. I don't really think of myself as an author, but technically I published two books.
Okay.
I don't think I told you about the second one, but
You did not.
self-published.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that all it counts. And I just think it's interesting two authors having conversation, but we can start anywhere you want. Like there's the whole writing journey, there's the taking a break journey, there's the like being able to release and let go of things that aren't serving you, even when it's
Yeah.
hard. And wherever you want to start, Jenny.
What do you feel like is the first thing people say when you tell them that you're a career break coach?
Oh my gosh, this is so interesting. The timing of this. This book, right? Like born of 6.5 years of being a career break coach and coaching people on many things, but specifically the majority of people on sabbaticals and career breaks. And yesterday, actually, I was at a holiday party and I'm just visiting. I'm in town. I'm in Atlanta visiting, one of my other friends. And I don't know anyone at this holiday party. And so she's introducing me and we're socializing. And, like she's introducing me as her author friend, which was really kind of funny because I still am like embracing feeling that way or seeing
Yeah.
myself because it's still brand new. But I remember very distinctly these two separate women that I met who we weren't together. It was like two different conversations, but she was explaining what I did, and it was so dismissive energetically, right? And I think it's a mixed bag. People usually, well, I think there are like three ways people respond. There are the people that are really intrigued or excited and they want to know more. It makes them curious. They're like, you do what? Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, tell me about that. Like, that sounds so, oh my gosh, like so and so, I know so and so took a break and I didn't even know that was a thing until they did it. And you wrote a book on it or you do that. Like, that's amazing. The second one is just complete, lack of awareness, which is understandable. Like, what? And it's like they ask questions to try to understand it or they don't ask any questions but they just are kind of confused, like that's something you can do for a living. And the third one is the one that I encountered last night, which is sort of I would say unconscious judgment. I don't think they're trying
Mhm.
to be judgy, but it's just this energy of like, oh, okay, that's cool. I mean, I'm in my early 50s, so obviously your book is geared towards 20 somethings,
Mm.
that type of thing, or like, oh, that's interesting. And kind of this energy of like, you don't know what it's like in this world that I'm in. Maybe you couldn't hack it, or maybe you're doing one of those like Fruit Loopy people doing Fruit Loopy things, which there's nothing wrong with being a Fruit Loopy person doing Fruit Loopy things, but that's actually not my background, right? I have an MBA. I was an actuary. I went to an Ivy League school. I have a math degree. But I just realized along the way, all these achievements don't mean anything if I don't like my actual life that I'm living. And, the median age and the average age of my clients is in the mid 40s. I've helped senior executives at Fortune 100 companies take a break who use their break to launch like their role as CEO for a different company, global VPs, like every kind of person, teachers, right? It's not everybody that has to be, but it's just so much more. What I do is so much more than that. But I
Yeah.
think when I try to explain it to people, it really pushes up against the boundaries of what people believe for themselves and the reality that they have about work and life. And so
Mhm.
some people are just really dismissive of it. And I don't think it's because they want to be. I just think it challenges some
They're
really fun.
closed-minded. Yeah.
I think it challenges their beliefs of what success is or what it looks like and how you're supposed to live your life. And it doesn't help that I look younger than my age, so I'm 44. And I think sometimes when people see me, they're like, oh, look at this 30 something trying to tell me about life. Like,
Yeah.
go, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, you must be still figuring yourself
Yeah.
out or whatever. But yeah, so I had that last night and it was uncomfortable, right? I'm a human and it always feels weird when you encounter people that like are judging you negatively, especially when you feel like you've just done this really amazing thing and they're like, oh, that's neat. That's neat what you did, you know?
Yeah, that's all about them though.
For sure.
They
Mhm.
need a break. They need
I'm
it the
like,
most.
if you could like hear them talking, I was just sitting
Yeah.
there like, oh my gosh, like I feel sorry for the world that you live in, where this is
Yeah.
your reality. Like one of the women told me that she was like, oh, I couldn't travel around the world like slumming it that way. Like I'm so beyond hostels. I'm too old for that. Like I need to travel really nicely. So that's why I can't take a break because I couldn't afford to like quit my job and travel the way that I wanted to. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, first of all, not all of my travels were in hostels. Sometimes I've stayed in hotels that are extremely nice. But also there's a million ways to take a break. And the fact that you're giving me the
Yeah.
experience that your travel standards of
Yeah.
hotel are too nice for you to like have a better quality of life. It's just like, come on, people, come on.
Yeah. I mean, it's custom to the person who's taking the break, right? Like you've had clients who travel, you've had clients who don't travel. Like
Yeah.
it's custom to the person. And that's so frustrating. That would be so frustrating for me because I like to challenge my assumptions.
Yeah.
It gets me in trouble sometimes. Sometimes I should have just kept my assumptions, but I like to challenge my assumptions. And so like my question would be like, well, this is what I think, but is it true? I need to go find out
Yeah.
if there's a cheaper way to do this. Like there's people living on cruise ships for like less than an apartment. So I mean, I really value when people get creative. I think it's inspiring when
Yeah.
people find creative solutions to problems. But
For sure. And I mean, that's what I did with points and miles, right? Like a
yeah,
lot of really nice things I've done are because I got way into points and miles because I wanted there to be a creative solution to afford nicer travel or more travel than my budget, allowed. For sure. Right. But I think the one thing I'll say, I've been reflecting on this all morning. I think
yeah,
the benefit of this sort of negative experience is it just really humbles me and reminds me of what my clients and like my readers are facing because
mhm,
for me it's my business, right? For me it's being an author of this topic and talking about this topic, but for them it's personal. It's their actual desire to take a break and they face people
they
judging
face people like that. Yeah,
exactly judging their
yeah,
specific actions. And so it just reminds me, which is good, right? Because I'm so far beyond that now after having, it was
mhm,
10 years ago that I took my first break. And I feel like I don't even need to justify that. I'm like, it was the most amazing thing ever. But it reminds me of the people I'm trying to help. And it kind of connects me back to their pain or their struggles. So that I can speak to them, but also have some compassion
yeah.
for, where they're at.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's so many doubters. It's like you've got your self-doubt to deal with, and then you've got other people on top of it. So I think that's why people need a coach to help them
Mhm.
because you have so many examples of people that have done it and they're in your book. And I got to meet one of the people in your book at
Yeah.
your launch party, and I loved talking to her because she was in corporate and then she left, I think she said for 15 months.
Yeah.
Her break was 15 months. She traveled for 4. And now she's back in corporate, but she's a completely different person. Like she has so much more agency now
Yeah.
than she did before. Like she's just like more herself and less trying to fit into this box. And I think that's what I would think is probably true. Like I think that's the value of career breaks is it's not really about what you're doing. It's just like reconnecting you with who you are, no
It's
matter
not doing, it's
whether
who
you're
you're
traveling
being.
or not. Yeah.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah.
It's like, who am I being? And do I like the person I'm being? To your point, her circumstances are quite similar, like the actual environment context. It's a different job, and I think it suits her better, like the company culture, but it's really the shift in who she's being, not what she's doing.
Right. Yeah. It's like she's doing the same thing. She's just happy. She's just
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
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 Um, I mean, I'm surprised that that this is kind of still an alien idea to people, because I read the 4 Hour Work Week years ago. I don't know when it was published, but it's been out a while now. And that's still one of my favorite books. And it talks about like mini retirements, which is kind of what I kind of view career breaks and
Yeah.
sabbaticals and mini retirements, like they're all kind of in the same bucket. Um, and so I'm just like, how have you not heard about this? Like, there's
Yeah.
people doing it. It's really cool.
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But so how did you get into career breaks?
Yeah. So I took my own. Was the dutiful, sort of hardworking. If there is a rung on the ladder to be climbed by a successful person, I want to climb it, right? I
Mhm.
wanted to make money. My parents did not have a lot of money growing up, and I just, I saw how much opportunity comes with money.
Yeah.
And that was important to me to know that life. And then, I was a good student. I was a high achiever. I was my parents' collective firstborn, just kind of like taking on that role. And I just wanted to be seen as good. I wanted to win at life, whatever that meant. And so I just pursued the winning path,
Mhm.
very much anchored into like money and status and, all the things that come with it. And I'll be honest, I'm glad I did it because I learned I could do it. And I'm like, yeah, I could do this. I can do lots of things, but I don't want to do this
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and that break for me was really about, I had done one career as an actuary for 8 years. Then I went to business school, and then I was a market researcher. And I changed my life, so I thought, but I still felt bad. In fact, I kind of felt worse. And it was really in that moment I had to reflect on, like, why am I feeling so bad? And I got a coach. This was in 2011,
Mhm.
like way before even online coaching was really a thing. So I would like go to her house, like a therapy, like
Oh,
office.
cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'd do my sessions, and it changed my life. And it was in the process of seeing my world in a different way and seeing more possibility for myself and more, like you said, agency over the choices I'm making that didn't honestly feel like choices at the time.
Mhm.
That's when I realized I wanted to take a break. I didn't have any money. I had $1,500 in my bank account. I had tens of thousands of dollars worth of student loan debt, but I was determined to make it happen. So I saved 40K in 18 months. I put my debt into deferment. I didn't pay it off. I was making my monthly minimum payments, but then I paused it when I became unemployed, and I took a break, and it changed my life. I traveled around the world for 20 months off that 40K. And, I came back, I landed 5 job offers in 5 weeks. And for me, that was the moment where I was like, this break makes my whole life better, not just my personal life, which is the most important, but it also made my career better. I landed in a much better job that was more aligned. It was similar to my client that you met. It was still a corporate job because I wanted to pay off all my debt as fast as possible. But it was in an industry I loved. It was the natural and organic food industry, which, that was who I was as a consumer. And I was really excited to be there. So I was like, okay, there's really something to this.
Yeah. I feel like that's a fear I think there's a lot of fears people would have thinking about
Yeah.
this, but I think one of them is just, how am I going to get a job when I need one again?
Yeah.
And I think the assumption is that no one's going to want to hire you if you have this like gap on your resume, right? But I have this thing with jobs where usually if I'm applying to jobs, the more I want the job, the less likely I am to get it because I have this like desperate energy that just repels people, I think.
Mhm.
And I think it's just like it's about the confidence that it builds, that I don't, you come back and you're just like, I'm just gonna look and see what's there, and I'm gonna pick something that's good for me and works for me, instead of just kind of desperately like begging for a job. I think it's just a different energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want
Absolutely.
to hear what you think though.
I totally agree. It's kind of like dating, right? Like it's
Yeah.
hard to find a great person if you're showing up to every date like, please just pick me, even if you're not a good fit, even if I don't actually want you as a partner, I just don't want to be alone. It's a similar kind of energy, and it similarly repels the people that are the people you'd actually want to date, right? Or the jobs you would want to have. And so, in the book, there's a whole chapter on sharing your news. And then there are 2 chapters on like how to come back from a break. And at the end of the day, the foundational piece is you have to believe in the benefits that you received from it, and you have to be your own hype man, right? Like you have to believe that it was beneficial to your spirit, and you have to see the vision of like, I'm refreshed, I'm recharged, I'm excited, I'm a person in high integrity, I am someone who goes for the things that I want, I value my life, and the things that matter to me, I will pour my whole self into. And now I've decided to come back to work, like your company, right? Mm-hmm. It's something I want to pour my energy and effort and brilliance into, and that matters. So it really, really anchors on how you see it, which, back to the parallel of dating, it matters how you see yourself, right? It matters that you believe that you're awesome and that you come with a lot and that you really own that, versus dismissing all the ways you are amazing. Like, how are other people going to recognize you're amazing if you don't believe you're amazing? Like, you are the one that knows you best, right? So
yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great way to put it. You're so passionate when you talk about it. I'm sure I'm like, you get a lot of practice. You talk about it a lot, but
no, I am very passionate about it though. I try not to get on the soapbox too often, but there are certain questions where you can ask me where I will be like, I have to get on the soapbox now. So
yeah. So what was the inflection point? So you go on your break. Mm-hmm. When did you decide to become a coach?
So my coach changed my life by changing my perspective. And that, I remember, planted a seed of me thinking like, her job is the coolest job ever. Like, she just sits there in her chair asking really interesting questions and like making people's lives better. Mm-hmm. What? And I'd actually wanted to be a therapist. Like in high school, I took a psychology class. My dad has a master's in psychology. Like, it's always been something I've been curious about. And this is like super nerdy, but I started talking when I was like 5.5 months old. And on the test that they would run when you're little, right? They always want to put you in these categories. The one that I was always the highest and it was really high was like comprehension, like using words and understanding and communicating. And I think that just sort of became, right, this passion to talk to people, to understand people, and to ask lots of questions. You live with me, I ask lots of questions. I talk a lot, right? So yeah. So for me, it was like, I never wanted to go through all the schooling, all the education that was required. So my dad was not a therapist. He just had a master's in psychology and used it in his job in different ways. But it was so much schooling. And I remember thinking like, I don't have time for that. At the time, I didn't even think I wanted to do a master's. And when I met her and discovered life coaching was a thing, I was like, I can do this with people without having to go to school forever and make peanuts, like while I'm in school. And I remember it planted a seed, but I still had a lot of debt and I was taking this break. So it just didn't really click for me then. And it was when I was coming back from my break, I allowed myself to take some community ed classes. And one of the community ed classes I took was having a life coaching business by a woman that had been a life coach for, probably like 20 years at that time. She was certified by Tony Robbins back in the day. And I just really loved it. And I was like, yeah, this is confirming and affirming what I felt before. And so when I'm out of debt, because I really wanted to be out of debt before I launched my own business, that pressure would have killed me. When I'm out of debt, I'm really going to come back to this. And then I did.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's awesome. Was the break your coach's idea, or did she just help you think of it on your own?
So good. Yeah. So I hired her to help me find my third career. Cause I was like, oh, I've had these 2 corporate careers and I hate my life, but I don't know how to change it. So help me find my career. Like, I wanted a really easy fix. I thought if I can find the perfect job, I'll stop being miserable. I'll have all this meaning. I'll make some money and I can have like the most perfect life. And so I was working towards that goal with her, and we were having a discussion about something very unrelated. And it was like six to 8 months after we'd been coaching and coaching and coaching. And I was sitting on her couch, and while she was talking, I heard this voice inside me, and it just said, you don't want another career, you want a break. And I was like,
Mm.
break. Like it was so like, like when you have like the gongs and you ring them and it's like that sound that
Yeah.
like, and it
Mhm.
just resonates to like the core of who you are. It was
Yeah.
like the word break felt like somebody hitting a gong inside of me.
Mm.
And it was just so true. It like reverberated in my body. And I was like, I just sat there with my eyes really big and she was talking. And when she finished her sentence, I was like, Anne, I just like heard a voice inside me that's, I think I want to take a break. And she's like, okay, well, I guess we have a new mission. And I don't know what to do with this. And she was like, I guess we just play with it. And so I took that home with me and I sat with it. And I kept like trying it from different angles. And I'm like, but what about the money? But what about your career? But what? And every time that part of me was like, nope, still want a break. Nope, it's a
Mm.
break, 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 break. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm taking a break.
That's so cool. I love that story.
Yeah.
It's so funny because my coach kind of influenced me in the same way. I was like, wow, this talking about things to someone is really helpful. Like, I want to do that for people. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
It's
You are
like a
really good at it. I
multi-level marketing scheme.
mean, let's be real. I think online business in general sometimes is an MLM and then coaching because it's so unregulated and people
Yeah.
that don't
I'm
even
joking, but
no,
I get the
but
point.
no,
Yeah.
but sometimes I feel like it is the wild, wild west, right? Like you
Yeah.
have like, a
I mean,
bunch
I
of
don't want the people listening to think that's that's what happened.
oh yeah, no. But I'm acknowledging, right?
Yeah.
Like healthy to have skepticism of people that you don't know. So like consuming content is important to see like if people are walking their talk and if they really know what they're talking about. But I mean, a life coach changed my life. A coach changed your life. Like there's something really powerful in it. And it's not like, oh, suddenly I went from making 80K to like 120K and I got promoted and now my life is better. It's like, no, she challenged how I see myself and how I see the world and like the way that I move through the entire rest of my life. Right. And that's
Yeah.
like foundational. And so coaching has the ability, right? If you find a great coach to be transformational, which
Mhm.
is just the coolest thing.
Yeah. I think one of my biggest lessons from being coached is or was or is that you don't actually know what you want. Like you can't just go in with like if you just go in with this goal. I mean, I feel like certain personalities maybe and certain coaches maybe if you just have a goal like I want to be rich,
Yeah.
But like through the process of coaching you usually realize that what you thought you wanted is actually different, I think.
Oh, yeah, I think you're saying. Yeah, so I think like they say like in the business world, right? It's like tell them what they want to hear, give them what they need. And I
Yeah.
think like that's the thing. You're so right. The thing that they come for, that they think they
Mhm.
want, isn't really what they need, or it's
Yeah.
just the surface symptom of a bigger
Yeah.
problem. And in the coaching, you go deep to get to
Mhm.
the root versus it's kind of like, if you have a headache, it's like you're like, I just want my headache to go away, but maybe you have a headache because something is wrong with your
Yeah.
skin, something,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, let's fix the problem so you don't have more headaches versus just curing this temporary, solution of
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
medicine.
I think accountability is a big one in coaching. I think people are just like, I need someone to hold me accountable to getting stuff done.
Yes.
But it's usually that's usually not the problem a lot of the time. It's like, okay, but you've got this like perfectionism thing going and this fear of rejection thing, and it's not really about someone like whipping you into shape to just accomplish things. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And I
always different.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, for some people, when accountability is important, it's in a different way where it's like they're actually doing a lot, but for everyone else. And it's
Mhm.
more like holding them to be
Yeah.
accountable for themselves, right? Like you have
Yeah.
to take care of yourself. You have to stop worrying about your job, your family, your kids, your partner,
Mhm.
pets, your mortgage, whatever, like all the things that you're constantly worrying about. And when you are accountable, it's to other people's needs. And it's really having someone constantly redirect the focus to be like, are you being accountable to your needs? Right. And sometimes your need is just rest. Like sometimes it's like
Yeah.
not the thing. I just wanted to add like one of the really one of the most powerful things besides, there's lots of things that coaches do, but one of the most powerful tools I think and benefits coaching provides is validation. So I've told you before, right? I think one of your superpowers is like you are so good at validating people. And it seems so like superficial, but it's really deep because I think in life, a lot of us come from a place of we're not doing enough, we're not good enough. And it's this idea that like if we achieve this milestone, or if we get this thing, or if we have that kid, or if we find a partner, or if we make a certain amount of money, or we have a house in a certain neighborhood, right? Like then we've made it, then we'll feel good, then we'll feel enough, but it actually never really feels like enough. You just set a new goal for yourself. And I think the validation is powerful because it's having someone reflect back all the ways that you already are enough. And sometimes my clients, some of the most powerful shifts that happen are they'll show up to a session and be like, well, I didn't do anything this week and I feel crappy and I didn't even really want to come to my session because I didn't do my homework. And I'm like, okay, let's reflect on the last 3 weeks and all the things you've done, right? And you just start blam, blam, blam. And they're like, oh, well, when you put it that way, a lot, but that's important, right? I think it's important to shift out of that I'm not enoughness and to have a safe space with somebody that can tell you all the ways with high accuracy that you already are enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's really important for people. It's like, I think so many people are suffering twice, right? It's like, oh, they didn't get this thing done, and they also feel guilty that they didn't get the thing done.
Mm-hmm.
And they're suffering twice. And the more you're suffering, the less motivated you are to get the thing done.
Yeah.
So if you can just remove the guilt and shame, that's
Mm-hmm.
half of the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, guilt and shame is just something so many people are carrying around, and it just adds to the suffering. You're just suffering twice. So yeah.
And it's an energy leak, right? If you have a finite amount of energy to give in your day, trying to overcome guilt and shame and just this feeling of dread, it takes the energy that you could be putting towards the things that you
Yeah.
need. So it's sort of like an energy suck.
It's a total energy leak. It zaps the energy you need to get the thing done. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just compounds on itself.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear some examples of things that you or your clients have done on their breaks. Like, what did they take that time to do?
Yeah. Oh, that's a fun question. So there's a whole spectrum, right? So we talk about, you said earlier, you can do it any way. There's no one right way to have a break. It's all about what do I need, and then giving yourself permission to just focus on that. So, for some of my clients, one of the cool things, I really like this one. One of the coolest things my clients have done, one of my clients became a certified equine energy healer. So she heals horses, but also animals with energy. And so it's similar to Reiki, but it's focused for horses, and she uses it with other animals as well. But like she heals animals that are emotionally shut down or that have been traumatized or bullied by other animals and the thing or their owner. And it's just the most amazing thing. And then she like doubled down on that and also started an animal sanctuary for aged animals. So like,
Oh, that's so cool. I love
yeah.
that.
And so she has a farm and she has these animals on a farm that she rescued. And, she was working at a nonprofit, not doing animal things before. And it's just so amazing how much she has blossomed into this personal interest and given herself permission to just expand the way that she shows up in this thing that she's interested in. Now that she's left the nonprofit, and the nonprofit, I believe she was a co-founder of it. It was very important to her. And it just, to me, it's like a really awesome example of you can be a certain person at 35 and you can be a completely different person at 45. And you don't have to feel like because a previous version of you had this goal that you have to keep doubling down on some iteration of that old goal. We evolve and we change. And she handed, the nonprofit over to another person to like co-run. I mean, in her role, there were other people involved, but like her role, she handed it over to someone else. And it was really hard for her. But once she did it, it's like the next door just opened up and all these other amazing things became possible. I have clients that do travel. The one that you're talking about had so many crazy, amazing adventures. I think she was having like the time of her life in like Montenegro and the Bay of Couture and like doing all these like really interesting things. I got certified as a yoga teacher in Bali, which was way outside my comfort zone, but also something really memorable from my experience. I have clients that have studied Spanish in Guatemala and lived with a family in a homestay for like a full immersion to get
Cool.
better at Spanish. Yeah. And actually ended up getting a job opportunity as a contractor because of the sort of like, colloquial like Spanish, like type of like being able to like converse, not even being fluent, but just being able to sort of like get by. So that was a really fun one. I had clients that do fellowships, so they get to like pivot their career or, take a different step once they return because they go on these fellowships for people in mid-career and just kind of learn a bunch of stuff that they're interested in with a bunch of cool people that are in a similar place. One of my clients, this one's a really simple one. His neighbor keeps bees and chickens. And so he spent some time with his neighbor, like learning how to keep bees and chickens. And then he and his family ended up moving during the break, which was very unexpected, like kind of across the country. And he has chickens now. And so it's like, like it's neat stuff
Yeah.
like that. I have a client that is writing a fiction novel, and that's the main thing that her break is for. And then I have some that it's really just about healing. I have a client that had an undiagnosed health like crisis going on that had been like building and compounding over several years. And she used her break. One of the main things she did was she worked to advocate for herself, get a better doctor, and get a diagnosis and learn that she had Lyme disease on top of like several other things going on. And so she used that break to heal her health, right? So there's no
Yeah.
wrong way to spend that time, but those are just some examples.
Those are great. I mean, I feel like so many people are just so overworked.
Yeah.
And it's like you drive past that neighbor every day, but you don't have the time or the energy to go see their chickens. It's like those little moments that we miss out on that like lead us in these completely different directions. Like we're just all too busy to stop and notice things,
Yes.
know ourselves.
Yeah.
And I really hope that changes. Like I hope it gets to a point where people don't have to leave their jobs to get that, but a lot of people do, and a lot of people don't think they can. And I think it's important to sit down and look at if that's true, because for some people maybe it is true, but I think a lot of people just have this like undefined fear about it without sitting down and looking at the logic of it and like, is this actually possible? What are my options?
Yeah.
Right. And it is custom to everyone because you can change the length of the break. You can stay close or go far. Like there's different options.
I have clients that travel, clients that don't. I have a client that took a 2-month break. I have clients that have been on break for 2+ years. Like there's no wrong way, to
Yeah.
do it. But I want to touch on something you said just a minute ago. And I think, one of the huge benefits of taking a break is that it allows you to be present for the really small good things in your life and to fully appreciate them. So I think what happens, to the point that you're making before, I think
Mhm.
what happens is that we're so busy and we're so consumed by stress and our jobs and all the things we think we should do that we kind of hate doing, that we work so hard to build a good life, so hard. We work hard, we try to people please the people in our life, we try to be a good, parent or a good son or daughter or a good partner or just a good human. And like we are working so hard and we're building this life that we don't take time to actually appreciate the life that we've been building. We keep waiting for this peak moment to feel the sense of appreciation. And I think what a break does is it completely disconnects you from that hustly rat race energy of like trying to build, build, build. And you shift your focus from like out there to in here. And you can see for the
Yeah.
first time sometimes how good your life is and appreciate and spend time getting to really enjoy the things that are already here, that are already good, like your neighbor that has chickens, like the softness of your mattress and being able to sleep in without an alarm clock, having a quality conversation with somebody that you normally don't have time to talk to, being able to meet strangers who are interested in the things that you're interested in. And I think we miss that. And to make it personal, right? It can happen to any of us. And so you and I, right, we live together. And one of the saddest things, although I'm happy that we did it, but one of the saddest things is there was this really cool coffee shop in our neighborhood. And as I was leaving, right, I think it was like right as I was like moving out, I had asked you like, if we could go on a walk because it was like down a hill, uphill to go there. Like if we go on a morning walk to grab a cappuccino. And that walk, like down the hill, over the bridge, through the cute little part of town to get like this delicious cappuccino, and then walking like uphill to get my energy going and like back home, and to feel like I've already done this amazing workout in a really delightful way, and like the peace and the meditativeness, and then like the conversations we would have. It was like, why did I wait until the end of my 6 months to do this with you? Because it was like one of the most magical things. And I think we did it like maybe twice before I left, but it was, again, it's just, I'm busy building my business. I'm doing all these things and I'm filling my life with all the stuff I've got to do. And it's hard sometimes to really see all the things around you and to stop and fully appreciate them. And I think that's what a break does for you. And while it's nice if we don't all need like 6 month, 1 year sabbaticals from life, I do fully believe that breaks should be a part of a long-term life plan, right? Like we shouldn't be working all the time, even if we love what we do. There should be other parts of us that we nurture. And I think a break lets you nurture those other parts.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like when you're in that rat race energy, you can't really see where you need to be going. Like you have to create the space first and then you can see. So yeah. It's like the slower that you go, the more you see. Like it's like driving to work on the highway versus like walking. Like when you're walking, you're like, oh, look, they painted that house and this flower is blooming now. It's like just more immersive.
Yeah.
And you notice things. When you're on the highway, you're not noticing things like that.
I
Yeah.
love that. I want to double down on that because I use that analogy too. And I want to say, to your point, you notice more, you see more, you like slow down. It's also like, why are we on the highway to begin with? Because at the end of the day, what happens once we get to the place that we're going? It's like we're rushing to get to the end of life in a way. And it's, I talk about if you're in Boston and you're headed to LA, most often the default is to think we can only take the highway because we've got to get there as fast as we can. But there's so many cool things to see between Boston and LA. And if you're only on the highway, you're never going to see the Grand Canyon, right? You're never going to stop in the cool towns. You're never going to see the things that make the places that you're going through the most amazing thing ever. And you can't appreciate them if you don't see them. And so I think it's really important to not live with that mentality of like, always take the highway. It's like not where the good stuff is. Every once in a while, you got to get somewhere fast. So maybe highway, but it shouldn't be the default.
Yeah. I'm going to be morbid and say, we're all going to the same place. It's death. And you can take the highway or the scenic route, but we all end up in the same spot. So,
well, and just to that point, think about being on your deathbed or being in the last, like 2 or 3 years of your life and all the experiences you had. Like, how much better is that life? How much more well lived is the life where you got off the highway quite often to really see some stuff versus what is it like to reflect on your life if all you ever did was highways and you're like, yeah, I saw lots of billboards and like businesses, but I don't really even know what this life was about,
Yeah. I think my biggest fear is regret. And so all of my choices are like, I don't want to leave like a road unexplored.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes they end up being terrible roads, but my biggest fear is regret. And it's like, I would rather know than wonder when I look back, right? I would rather know than wonder, like, what if? Yeah. And I don't know if that's, I don't know if other people share that fear as much, but They should.
Yeah. I feel like I have a version of that.
Yeah.
It might come as a fear of regret, but I feel like my mission in this life is to know what life is and to live as fully as I possibly can. And so in a similar way, I'm trying to experience the things that I want to experience. And some of them I don't want to. I don't want to know what it's like to lose your favorite person in the whole world at an insanely young age. And I've lived that, right? I lost my younger brother when I was 33, very unexpectedly. And it was like, it was the most terrible thing ever, right? But when I'm dying, I am going to know the full range of being a human. And I think for me, I'm like trying to live this life in such a way that I will have lived as full a life as I could live and to know as much about life and living and what it's really about as I possibly can. And then my time is over, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, things like that, as terrible as they are, like they do, I think, change your perspective and really make you realize like what's important, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah, time is limited and we take it for granted. And
And I don't want people to wait for a tragedy, right? Like, because you're right, a tragedy can totally shift your perspective. And um, I was planning my break. I was 1 week away from my break when my brother unexpectedly passed. And I will say one thing in the midst of the really awful grief fog that I was in for a very long time. One of the things I was grateful for is that I had showed up to live my life as best I could before he died. Um, because I would hate for it to have required his passing,
mm,
like have me
yeah,
get out and live my life. Like I felt really proud that I was already trying to live my life and having my life ahead of me, like having quit my job, having saved this money, having, already set a plan for what I could do really helped me recover from the grief of losing him. And so, I just encourage you, like, yeah, big moments will absolutely change your perspective and reprioritize things, but you don't have to wait for that.
yeah,
You can just really appreciate that you have life today and that nothing is promised, and you can do the work to get out and try to live your life fully before it happens. And then when it does happen, you'll have a lot of gratitude for the life that you've been living.
yeah, yeah. That's a great point. Yeah. Um,
Thank you, validator.
is there anything else that you think we missed before we wrap things up?
No, I mean, I feel like we've had a really fun conversation and said
Yeah.
some important things. I think um I just at the end of the day, if you're watching this and you're feeling like this is resonating with you, I just want you to know you're not alone. Like you and I are not the only two people that feel this way. There are a lot of people like this book, right? Like, oh, it's upside down, but go get the book. But like this book I've coached over 70 people through career breaks and sabbaticals, like over 70, just me, just myself. And I've included anecdotes in here, like 24 clients signed permission waivers to let me tell their story in this book. Um, and it's meant to be validation in its own way that you're not crazy. It's meant to help you really see what it looks like in real life, to not think that I'm a special unicorn and that you can't do something like what I've done. And I just, like if this resonates with you, like get the book, think about what you really want out of your time and just know it's possible, right? And if you don't want to take a break, that's cool too, but it's a great moment to stop and really reflect on what are the things I want in this season of my life, separate of what I think I should be chasing. What is it that's going to like really light me up? I think it's just an important question to keep asking ourselves. I mean, I need to still keep asking myself that, 10 years after a break. So
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think there's lessons that you can gain from it, even if you're not ready for a break or don't know how you're going to take a break. Like you can still learn the lessons of a break before you're ready to go on one, or at least start, I think. Yeah.
absolutely. No, yeah, there's a lot of life coaching stuff in this book. So it walks you through from the very first step of like how to decide or determine if a break is right for you and like what are all the kinds of breaks you could take, all the way through taking a break, like planning it, preparing for it, traveling, being on a break, and then coming back from a break and taking the benefits with you into your next chapter. And I think to your point, you know, I'm a life coach first, and I feel like there are life lessons in the book, and a break is an amazing experience to really learn the life lessons. Like
It's the vehicle. It's the vehicle, but I think the mindset stuff in there is like is the starting point no matter where you're ending
yeah,
up, right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no matter where. So
Cool. Where can people get your book?
yeah. Oh my gosh. So you can get my book a couple places. You can get it on Amazon. That's like the easy, fast place. But if you want to support independent bookshops, you can find it on bookshop.org. So they have my book available. And then if you want to get your hands on it and see it in person, it's at a lot of Barnes and Noble. So you could just look it up on Barnes and Noble and see where the closest one to you is. But it's in a lot of Barnes and Nobles. So you could go find it in person if you wanted to see it first.
Cool. That's legit. You're in the Barnes and
I
Noble.
know. I found my book for the first time at a Barnes and Noble outside DC in Virginia, in Reston, Virginia. And I was so excited to see it.
I forget where I heard this. Somebody told me if you ever publish a book, send it to the Library of Congress because they'll like keep it in an archive for the rest of time. It'll be like in there. I don't know if that's true, but
Yeah, okay. I'll have to check into that. I'll be like asking my publisher, like, did you
is
put my
is
book
this
in the
in the
Library
Library
of
of
Congress?
Yeah. And then where can people find you if they're
Yeah.
interested in more information?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn and also on Instagram. So on Instagram, you can search my name, Katrina McGee, or you can look at K McGee Coaching and find me there. And then on LinkedIn, it's just my name and you'll see me.
Cool. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Um,
This is fun.
I can't think of any closing thoughts. Do you have any?
I just think like use Jenny and I as an example, right? Of what's possible when you take the time to really reflect on your life. Like we both had coaches that helped us on that journey, but I think we're both living really vibrant lives. It's up and down, it's a roller coaster. We don't get to escape the drama of life, but it has so much more meaning now on this side of things. And
Yeah.
I feel it all, including the failure sometimes, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, you have a better team when you do fail too. I feel like once you start your like what's the word? Self-improvement journey, when you do fail, you've got a much better team around you. So,
That is so true. I agree
yeah.
with that. Mhm.
All right, Katrina, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jenny. Bye. It's so
Bye.
fun.